Hey, what's up YouTube, Skybadger here, and we're back on day 30 of our 100 player fan game series. So, as you can see on the leaderboard, we're in 7th, and on the largest economy, we are in 8th. So, just quickly, this video is recorded in post, so if I sound a little inconsistent, that is why. So, back to this point though. So at this point in the last fan game, we were fighting the South Africans and the Asians on both sides. It was effectively everyone versus America. And we're coming down to that one final battle. As we can see, the intel on the enemy shows they have a massive sub-wall up, while our sub-wall is greatly depleted. We can see that my sub-wall in my northernmost territories now has been replaced by aircraft. That way I can take them up and put them down relatively quickly. In fact, that's the majority of my tactical bomber force, which has been pretty much redundant for the past few days. After our battle with the South Africans and the Asians in the Pacific, I've had a hard time repairing my fleet. At this point, I've got one group that's pretty much ready to go, obviously made up of, I think in this case it was actually 2 battleships, 3 carriers, the 5 cruisers, and the correct amount of destroyers and subs, so most of the good stuff. So that part's pretty much all ready to go, lacking 1 battleship. The problem is though, I lack the aircraft to man the aircraft carriers, which I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but that was kind of what I was working on at this point in the game. I've also got a smaller group that is made up of a few cruisers and destroyers and submarines. As we can see, between Cuba and the north of South America, there's a massive gap in our sub-wall, and over the past couple of days our enemy's been eating away at it, and we haven't been able to get too close because we haven't had a big enough fleet. However, Mattis has now moved his ships into the region, and we should be able to push them back. At the same time, we have a few rocket convoys that are moving into position as well. I don't want to fire these rockets at enemy ships, but I might if I have to. What I want to use these rockets for is to stop any enemy convoys that attempt to land. So that is the aim there. At this point in time, I do have some substantial land defenses in the area. However, to rely on these would be pretty much a bad idea. The enemy has air superiority that we can't beat. Mattis can maybe beat it, but I don't want to let any troops get to land. So the rockets are there to stop enemy troops once they start disembarking. Then I'll fire the rockets and take them out. But ideally, I'd sacrifice my navy to stop them from getting their troops. Actually, no, I wouldn't sacrifice my navy. That'd be a bad idea, because you can only sacrifice something once. I'd use it strategically to deal as much damage as possible before retreating it. At this point here, I need to keep my navy, because if I lose it at this point, they can very easily blockade my ports in the Gulf of Mexico, and I'd only be left with the limited naval production I have on my western coast. So it would be a bad idea. Anyway, so that's Matt's group there. 21 destroyers, 8 submarines, 10 cruisers, 3 battleships, and 3 carriers. Most of that stuff, the battleships and carriers, actually built by me. But that's being brought back from the Pacific, because we feel confident we can defend our land border there with our army. So that's been brought back into the Atlantic and is going to help me, when the time comes, push back against the South Africans. We also had a massive amount of ships in the area that belonged to All American, or I'm pretty sure in this game North Brazil, could be wrong by that. However, overnight they were sunk, and that made up a substantial amount of our navy, and losing those ships really hurt our ability to fight here. So with that out of the way, we're kind of really on our last legs in terms of what we have to offer for defense. As you can see, I've got troops down in South America that are defending the coast. So these troops here, although it doesn't look like much, it's actually a pretty substantial defense when we consider what our enemy is actually bringing from that side. So the limited troops I have there is actually quite a bit, especially with that artillery regiment backing it up. The artillery division will pack a serious punch considering the level of the artillery as well. So our army, although it's not the best, is actually the best, if that makes sense. It's not very well upgraded, however it is definitely substantial. Those 4 commandos in the region, they were going down to help man the mountainous regions in the south. However, we know there are a large amount of enemy convoys kind of off Cuba, so we're keeping those in the region ready to respond. And if tensions do, well, tensions aren't going to change. If things do change in the north, we might send them down to the mountains to help man those fortifications. But in the meantime, our priority is going to getting ready around Cuba and making sure they don't push through there. If they push through, they can cut me off from South America and then cut South America off from North America. So getting cut off is definitely not where we want to be. There's not really too much more to say. We've got the technological advantage. Most of our units are much higher than what the enemy is throwing at us, especially on the land. I've got some very good infantry, some very good artillery, and our enemy seems to lack that. They've very much specialized in their ships and have very much specialized in their air force. And while we have done that, because we have more players, we've been able to spread the workload and really share those upgrades. So we've got level 4 infantry, for example, while one of our enemies only has level 2, and that is a massive difference that will definitely go a long way and help in our defense if they do get to the beaches. South Africa, on the other hand, his is a bit more upgraded, but for the most part we do have the technological advantage once again. However, if we lose on the sea, we're going to lose anywhere. So it's really important that we keep them back with our navy, and then we can follow up and we can hit back with our armies. If we need to, we can upgrade our armies even more with the time we have left. So those tactical bombers on patrol are making sure nothing is coming through to Florida, I guess, or the eastern coast of America. So that's what's happening there. In Asia, our buddies have had some stuff going on here for a while, but it's basically just been running around in circles. Illinois is just going in circles, capturing territories. There's nothing cohesive here. There's really not that much going on. They really need to get the air power over there, and they really need to press that advantage they have. We've got troops across to the other side, which is more than we can say about the enemy. However, we're not making the most of that, and that's just due to activity. At the same time, we're struggling to send other troops across because the enemy navies in the region, as we can see here, are quite strong. California does have a strong navy, however, he's not active enough to press that advantage, so that is really holding us back. So thank you for watching, and I guess I'll see you in the next episode.